My name is Naomi. I'm sitting in my dorm at Stanford looking out at the beautiful campus, but my mind is back at that Thanksgiving dinner, the moment when everything changed. It was a typical Thanksgiving gathering at our house. There were 22 of us around the table. My brother Ethan was wearing his high school basketball jersey like he was already a pro. My father, Mr. Thompson, was carving the turkey, and my mother, Mrs. Thompson, was pouring wine. Everyone in the room seemed to know which child was the apple of their eye. Then the phone rang. My mother answered it, and I watched as the color drained from her face. "You mean my daughter?" she stammered. That was the moment the lie my family had been living started to crumble. Let me take you back to how it all began. I was a senior in high school with big dreams of going to a top-tier university. I'd been working hard on my college applications for months. I had my sights set on Stanford, MIT, Harvard, and Princeton. One evening, I was sitting at my desk when the SAT score email came in. I'd been refreshing my inbox every few minutes for days. My hands were shaking as I clicked it open. I scored 1450. I was overjoyed. It was a great score, good enough for the schools I'd been researching. I rushed downstairs to tell my parents. My father was in the living room watching a basketball game. Ethan was sitting next to him playing on his phone. "I got my SAT score," I said. My father glanced over his shoulder and asked, "How bad?" That question didn't surprise me. In our family, it seemed like only Ethan's achievements mattered. 1450, I replied. He just laughed and turned back to the TV. "That's nice, Naomi, but Ethan got 1500, and he's going to be a big-time basketball player. Colleges want athletes, not just test takers." I tried to argue about scholarships, but my mother interrupted from the kitchen. "We've decided the money we've saved is for Ethan. He needs camps, training, and exposure. You're smart. You can figure life out without college." I stood there, holding my score report, feeling like all my hard work had been for nothing. But I wasn't going to give up. I'd already submitted all my college applications online 2 days before. They could burn every piece of paper, but they couldn't stop me. A few days later, my mother found the printed backup copies of my applications on my desk. Without a word, she called my father, and they took me downstairs to the kitchen. Ethan was at the table eating a snack. He looked up when we came in, and our eyes met for a brief moment. My mother spread the applications on the counter. "You've been wasting your time on this," she said. "Ethan needs this money for his future." My father picked up one of the envelopes and read the address. His face hardened. "These schools are expensive. We can't afford it." I tried to explain about financial aid, but they wouldn't listen. My mother gathered the envelopes, walked to the sink, turned on the faucet slightly, and dropped them in. Then she pulled out a lighter and set the corner of one envelope on fire. The flames quickly spread, and I watched as my dreams went up in smoke. The smell of burning paper filled the air, and it felt like a part of me was being destroyed. But I had a secret. A few weeks before, I'd applied for an internship at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory on a whim. I was at my grandmother's funeral, surrounded by relatives I barely knew. When I pulled out my phone and filled out the application, I didn't tell anyone. A few days after my applications were burned, I got an email from NASA. I almost didn't open it. I was so exhausted, but I'm glad I did. I'd been selected for the summer internship. It was a paid position, $18 per hour, and the program was from June to August. I quickly replied with a yes. On the first day of my internship, I borrowed my neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins' car. She was an elderly lady who didn't drive anymore, and I'd been helping her with her garden for years. I drove to the NASA facility feeling nervous but excited. My supervisor, Dr. Miller, was a brilliant and strict man. He looked at my badge and said, "You're the youngest intern we've had in years. Don't waste this opportunity." I worked hard at NASA, analyzing test data, running simulations, and learning CAD software. Every evening, I'd drive home smelling of machine oil and lab chemicals. My family never asked where I'd been. The first week, my father asked, "Where were you?" I said, "The library." And he just said, "Good, stay out of trouble." Ethan left for a basketball camp in the summer. My parents spent a lot of money on it, hoping he'd get recruited by a big-name college. When he came back, they threw him a welcome home dinner. Everyone was asking him about the camp, and he was exaggerating his achievements. I sat there quietly, listening and thinking about my own secret success. By the 4th week at NASA, Dr. Miller gave me my own project, improving the efficiency of a small-scale propulsion system. I spent weeks running simulations, adjusting variables, and testing different configurations. By the end of the internship, I'd achieved a 10% efficiency improvement. Dr. Miller was impressed and said my work was publishable. In October, I got an email from Stanford. My application was under final review and the early decision results would be available in December. I took a screenshot and saved it in a hidden folder on my phone. Around the same time, I got an email from Dr. Miller about the Pathways program at NASA. It was a long-term internship opportunity that could lead to a full-time position after graduation. I was selected, and I was overjoyed. Thanksgiving was approaching, and my mother started planning the dinner. She was stressed, making lists and buying all the supplies. Grandpa Henry called to confirm he was coming. He was my grandmother's husband, and he'd always been kind to me. He said he had something for me that my grandmother had left. A few days before Thanksgiving, I received a package from Stanford. It was a welcome packet with a course catalog, campus map, and a letter from the dean. I opened it in my room, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. I hid it in the back of my closet. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to the sound of my mother bustling around downstairs. I came down in my pajamas and started helping with the preparations. Ethan came downstairs in his basketball jersey, looking pale and tired. I asked him if he was okay, and he just said he was nervous. Guests started arriving. Grandma and Grandpa Thompson came first, then Aunt Lisa, Uncle Tom, and their kids. My cousin Lily whispered to me, "I know you're smart. I'm rooting for you." Finally, Grandpa Henry arrived. He hugged me tightly and whispered, "Your grandmother would be so proud of you." After everyone had gathered in the living room, the conversation turned to Ethan. My father was bragging about his basketball skills and how he was going to be recruited by big colleges. Aunt Lisa asked me what my plans were for next year. My mother answered before I could, "Naomi is taking a gap year. She's going to figure out what she wants to do." I just sat there feeling angry and frustrated, but I kept my secrets to myself. Then the phone rang. It was an unknown number from California. My mother answered it, and as I watched her face change, I knew it was about my Stanford acceptance. She handed me the phone, and I heard a professional voice say, "Hello, Naomi. This is Dr. Smith from Stanford University's Office of Admissions. We're delighted to offer you admission to the class of 2030. You've been awarded a full-ride scholarship, including a need-based grant of $70,000 per year." The room went silent. Everyone was looking at me. My father stood up, his face red. "You applied without telling us?" he asked. I looked at him calmly and said, "I told you I wanted to apply. You burned my applications, but I'd already submitted them online." Then I decided to reveal another secret. I've also been working at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory since June. I earned $7,200 during the summer. The room erupted in shock. My parents were speechless. Ethan stood up and said, "I'm sorry, Naomi. I knew about your NASA badge. I found it in your bag in July, but I didn't say anything." Just then, Grandpa Henry's phone rang. It was the attorney handling my grandmother's estate. He announced that my grandmother had set up a trust of $150,000 to be split equally between Ethan and I, but only if we were accepted into an accredited 4-year university. Since I'd been accepted to Stanford, I was eligible for my $75,000 share. Grandpa Henry then pulled out an envelope that my grandmother had left for me. He read the letter aloud. It said, "Naomi, you're the one with the bright future. You're smart, determined, and have a heart of gold. Don't let anyone dim your light." I started to cry. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was truly seen and supported. After that Thanksgiving, my life changed. My parents started to see me in a new light.
My father apologized, but I told him he needed to prove that he really saw me for who I was. Ethan got accepted to a local community college, and he was starting to find his own path. We met for coffee one day, and he told me he was sorry for not standing up for me. I told him it wasn't his fault and that we were both trying to find our way. As I sit here in my dorm at Stanford, I look back on that journey. It wasn't easy, but I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I built my future in silence, and now I'm ready to shine. If you've ever had to fight for your dreams, know that you're not alone.